One of the main ingredients as it relates to our comprehending the true nature of this so-called reality that we inhabit, one of the main factors that the ancestors have brought to bear, and it's essential, and that is the understanding of the emanation process. That once we get this, now see, all of the esoteric information flows from this, flows just effortlessly from a proper understanding of emanation. This is essential. Emanation confirms our divinity, our divine origins. Emanation is the beginning of what we have come to define as physical reality, quote unquote, and life. Hold on 1 minute, I'm going to pause this. Okay, I had the windows open, was getting some noise from a truck and traffic out on the street. So, but this idea of emanation, it connects us with our divinity and connects us, therefore, with our source, okay, our true origins in divinity. We had talked in terms yesterday, and we're going to revisit that again. Our beginning is this rest outside of the physical realms before we create duality to move into a dualistic physical existence that we call reality, that we call the material world, that we call life. And the problem is, like we talked about yesterday, we've forgotten these things. So we have up until this point, up until the point that emanation has been introduced in the equation, we have operated from a extremely profound physical material perspective and point of view. And so from that standpoint, nothing divine could even be conceptualized, let alone our making the bold statement that we are divinity, that we are God, that we are the source. So we want to revisit this idea of emanation. And you remember a while back, we talked about it in terms of this ripple effect. And it was during this discussion, or based on this discussion later, Nasik weighed in and brought into it the idea of the Big Bang. And so that we have a conceptualization of that. And the Big Bang was essentially, family, us as divinity coming into motion and impacting impacting the physical and simultaneously creating it. And because of the Big Bang, creating this ripple effect of wave and energy that expands, family, listen, outward from the source. that expands outward from the source. And unlike waves created by dropping the pebble or something heavy, an object, into the water, the energy does not dissipate. All right. It continues to expand outward and outward and outward ad infinitum into eternity. So, using this as a starting point, the ripple effect is a situation in which ripples expand across the water that is Bria. That, and this is going to be very important, that the formative or primary step of the 4-step process of emanation, the primary step, absolute or fire, was bypassed, and we impacted upon the water, thus creating a faulty, false, imperfect, flawed emanation. So whatever expanded from that, listen, would be faulty and would be progressively faulty and flawed as it expanded out from what? The center or the source of impact, the Big Bang. The ripple effect is a situation in which ripples expand across the water, that is the Bria, or the second step or phase in the emanation process, going from divine to what? Physical. When an object is dropped into it, an effect from an initial state can be followed outwards incrementally. Outwards incrementally. And if you're taking notes, you can write that phrase down. Outwards incrementally. And Nasi, eternally. Eternally. It has an eternal effect of moving outward from the source. Never ending. Never ending.
Right.
Until you end it.
Right.
The ripples emanate, that is, flow outward as an omnidirectional pulse wave in all directions, family, in all directions. Omnidirectional pulse wave from the initial point of impact, the source, divinity. The ripples,
Yeah.
the ripples decrease in intensity. Now that is physically, but there is no decrease in intensity, family, of the wave. There is just decrease in the quality of divinity, but the intensity outward remains the same. So Nasik is not so much a transverse wave, which it is. It's what is called a scalar wave, SCALAR, which does not diminish in intensity because
Right.
it was created outside of the physical reality, and it created simultaneously the physical reality. So it says here the ripples decrease. We're just talking about regular waves in the water, which is just an example, as they radiate outward from their cause or source, the initial point of impact or action. That is, that initial point of impact, Nasi, is the Big Bang.
Right.
That is divinity at rest, family, uh, going into motion. Big Bang,
Yep.
Big Bang.
Right.
So we looked at how our ancestors represented this, and we looked at a scale that we're going to go to, but it's always family represented as going outward from the top and center of a circle and moving outward like this, and then back up into divinity, outward from divinity, starting here, moving all the way to different polar points of this half circle, this semicircle, and sometimes it's an oval, but then continuing and arcing back up to the source. And we have a multitude of different ways, and here again we have it represented this way, starting at the spiritual or divinity, moving back into the physical, then moving from the physical back out to divinity or the spiritual or the energetic or to wholeness. So there's many ways that we use to express this. We're trying to establish a firm idea and conception of this mentally for you so that you can have as many ways as possible to conceive this. And again, when we began yesterday examining the details of the various phases of the emanation process, we began at the rest point of divinity, divinity at rest, which is represented here by what is called the Param Atman, outside of the physical confines, in a non physical state at rest, wholeness, nicely. And then,
Yeah.
and then dualities or polarities had to be conceived. And that what? Initiated motion, divinity in motion. And then we didn't go through the full uh, divine process because like causes always produce like effects. Is that not correct?
Right.
So we would have just manifested divinity.
Right.
So it was imperfect in that it didn't go through the full process, four-step process. It impacted the waters, all right, and created that ripple effect, which moved outward from divinity, arced outward from divinity, and progressively um, ended up as physical, a physical representation, which is the polar opposite of divinity. All right.
Right.
So this is where we
Right.
find ourselves in the process right now. This is
Right.
where all of us emanated into, family. This last little portion here, in order to finish this out. And now, see, we wanted to take the ride back up. We wanted to take and experience the ride back up. So this is the purpose that we all emanated in here with. And this is what we are uh, comprehending at this point, so that we can, actualize now see this ascension process to the fullest. Now we actualize, family, the descension process to the fullest, did we not?
As we did.
So
Yes,
in
we did.
the same manner, we can actualize fully to the fullest the ascension process. This is nothing hard now, see.
No.
What they say what goes up must come down, but what went down must come up.
Well,
So we took a look at this in detail yesterday, and just with a quick review, topical review, uh, we looked at how original man, uh, as original man regressively emanated into a more physical, less astral or ethereal form, the mind ego, superego, developed, and we then began to forget our divine origins. We're remembering them now, family. And the reason why, Nasi, I mean, you can look around, not everyone is remembering these things.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Some because they are created beings. Some, we're referring to the aberrant man, is a created being, and he has no memory
Right.
of it by and large, unless the DNA was mixed. It was some gene mixing. We know that is true. So
So
this is not so clearly divided or separated on lines of race or color, but by and large it is. Now, see, by and large it is, but not exclusively. Not
yeah,
exclusively. So we're focusing on us primarily. And we are remembering our divine origins. That's the only way we in the world now see that we will be talking about emanation and talking about that we are divinity. There's no way in the world. And many people, having that memory, they can give lip service to it, but you actually have to pursue this inwardly in order to obtain it. And this is precisely what we're doing.
and Eitai,
Go right ahead.
the reason for that is that id element of us in the subconscious, that's where, that inner element is the neuromelanin
Yes, sir.
that is part of the conscious process, that once you begin to develop another level of consciousness beyond the physical,
Yes, sir.
the material realm, then you start to activate this whole, process of what we call memory,
That's correct.
because it's all lying in the subconscious,
That's correct. That's
Mhm.
correct. Absolutely. That's perfect there.
Yeah.
As original man regressively emanated into more physical, less astral, ethereal form, the mind, that is the ego and the superego, developed, and we began to forget their divine origin. So again, we are in the process of remembering those things. And what these classes are designed to do specifically is to jog your memory. Not so much teach you some things that you didn't know, but to teach you some things that you already know and
Mhm.
that you can access by going inward. So these things were part of our experience in our descent from the original point of rest to how and when we created motion and entered into the physical. The instinctual id is the only real and divine and the only real, genuine, and or divine aspect of original man. It is the
Yeah.
only real, genuine, and or divine aspect of you and I,
Right.
of our persona. So we looked at these two scripture verses in Genesis 2 and 25, and they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. We were not ashamed because we were in possession, family, of our, in more of an expression and more in possession when we initially emanated in of our real, genuine, and divine aspect. It was not, listen, clothed at that point with the ego, the latter elements of persona or personality, the ego and the superego. We're gonna really get into detail about this ego today. So they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Genesis 2 and 25. Were not yet clothed with the ego or the superego, not yet burdened. And the serpent was more subtle, arum aram, connoting nakedness, unclothed. We know that the serpent represents the id, okay? And we talked about that. And we talked about this word beast, which is the Hebrew word kai, translated as the word beast, as in Yah Chai, Yah Chai, Yah lives. The id is the only living element, and it's the only life-giving element because it is the only real aspect of us. It is our divinity. But again, this thing was flipped around and inverted as we what? Fail. And we're turned around in this emanation, regressive emanation process. Genesis 3 and 21. Unto Adam also and his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins and clothe them. So again, this is the coats of skin are the ego and the superego. You all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Which came later. They were naked. In the allegorical Garden of Eden narrative, the naked or unclothed condition of Adam and Chava is symbolic of the profoundly and predominantly id-like, that is beast-like nature of our uh, uh, the beast-like character I should say, not nature, the beast-like character, because I'm being redundant here, of our nature in the earliest and most primal and primary phase of our emanation into the physical realm. The id or divine aspect of our being was predominant and preeminent because was the only true or genuine aspect of our divine being. Consequently, the coats of skins referred to in this passage refers to the other two, later developing aspects of personality or being, the ego and the superego. That should be clear to us, family.
Mm-hmm.
It should be clear to us. So
Now, just a point of reference, Eitai,
go right ahead.
for those of us who have been reading The Messiah and the End of the World, page 50, and 51, you need to read it for your clarity because what you're going to read in 50 and 51 is like in opposition to what's being laid out here. But when you look at it, you have to know of a surety that the whole element of the beast has always been played in our religious persuasion as being negative.
Yes.
And if it's negative, then, and if it's, all of humanity is the devil.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If it's our true nature, then it only makes sense that the European would become, quote unquote, the beast. You follow me? So you need to go back and read that.
Right.
Because this here helps clear up, that was our true nature that the European done defined as being negative. And we bought into it as the beast being negative and the beast being the European.
Right.
So we need to read page 50 and 51, The Messiah and the End of the World.
Very good. So we took an etymological look at this word kai. All right. And etymologically, family, it leads to the word kava, kava, translated as Eve. And this is going to be our focus today. Comprehending the ego, kava, Eve, as the mother of all living. We get ready to go a lot higher, family. So kava means to tell, declare, show, make known, literally. Genesis 3:20. And Adam called his wife name Eve, that is kava, because she was the mother of all living. She was the mother of all living. Let's concentrate now. Kava, Eve, is an allegorical symbol of the ego and is the feminine mother-daughter aspect within each of us. I'm going to repeat that because this is going to be our foundation. Kava, Eve, is an allegorical symbol of the ego and is the feminine mother-daughter aspect within each of us. Consequently, Kava, Eve, as the ego or mother of all, not only conceives and gives birth to, that is, produces, the false, illusory, simulated matter matrix, and we're going to talk about this word matter and matrix below, but also as a mother interacts with, nurtures, serves, develops, and interprets it. The it being matter and physicality. I'm going to read that again. Kava Eve is an allegorical symbol of the ego and is the feminine mother-daughter aspect within each of us. Consequently, Kava Eve, as the ego mother of all, not only conceives and gives birth to, like a mother, or produces the false, illusory, simulated matter matrix, but also, as a mother, interacts with, nurtures, serves, develops, and interprets what we think of as physical, matter, material. Does it make sense, family?
Absolutely
Yes.
makes. And
Yes.
if it doesn't make sense, how is all of us acting, both male and female, acting within the physical realm?
That's correct.
Same.
Except that's the feminine element in all of us.
That's correct.
Same. Yes.
Absolutely makes
Yes.
sense.
Yep.
Simply said, the ego, feminine aspect of our persona, produces our mental, listen, human perception of the so-called material physical universe and
Yeah.
oversees, like a mother, now see, oversees,
Yeah.
governs, manages our thoughts, actions, and behavior accordingly.
Wow.
I'm going to repeat that. Simply said, the ego, the feminine aspect of our persona, see, we got to stop looking at this thing in terms of gender, not
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely shows.
and in terms of the energetic nature of things. I think we
Yeah.
have all arrived at the point where we can do that completely.
Yes.
Simply said, the ego, the feminine aspect of our persona, produces our mental, human perception of the so-called material, physical universe and oversees, governs our thoughts, actions, and behavior accordingly. See matter and matrix below. Now, that when we think of physical birth, that's what all of our mothers do. Is that not the case?
That's the
Mm-hmm.
case.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us what is soft, what is hard. They begin to define those things and set those definitions. What is soft, what is hard, what is cold, what is sharp, what is hot. And it sets the parameters of physicality, of materialism. Is that not correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it begins to develop the ego or the mother that is not there when our mothers go to cause us to what? Interpret reality as physical.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at the etymology and that relationship with with these words, because it will connect all of these terms and really confirm what it is that we're saying. So the mother, uh, from the proto the PIE, the Proto Indo European, is the word matter or matter, as in
Mm-hmm.
material, or matter, matter. So we go to material and it says substance or matter from which a thing is made. The matter matrix is produced by the ego mother, right? Kava,
Okay.
the mother of all living, moving things in action, of all duality, and by extension, of all illusion. So this is what it meant by Adam calling her or naming her Kava, the mother of all. That's what produces our false perception of quote unquote reality. It is a uh, reproduction of a production. It's a hologram.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the real thing. You know, we all know that what we call physical or material is 99.99999 not there. It's immaterial.
Yeah.
So it's not real, family. From the mid 14th century, material as an adjective, real as in reality, ordinary, earthly. And family, we know that earth is the last phase in the emanation process, the physical and the material. Now, see,
Yeah.
Yes.
we done reached the bottom, but we think because we have forgotten, we think that that is real. We think that it is ordinary.
Yeah.
We think that it is natural when it is, but it's not organic. The material world, of or belonging to matter, having material existence, physical, substantial, and consequently, family, it has become the only thing that is important and relevant to us.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about the physical all day. We can even teach about, the spiritual or the energetic all day. But what is of most importance to us is the material, is the physical, is getting them 3 squares a day. And we ain't and now see the paradox in that is we ain't getting no energy from that hardly.
Right. I mean,
Right.
Just enough, just enough to energize the material and to keep
Yeah.
us locked in. Ain't got nothing to do with eternal life. Because eternal life is outside of the matrix, as we saw, outside of the physical world. And what we see as life and death, what we dealing with every day now, see, spiritually and physically, is a simulation of eternal life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The word matter.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. You know, no doubt. Now matter. It's from the around the 13th century. Means subject of thought. That is really profound. The subject of thought, because it is because we have forgotten our divine origins. The physical, the material has become profoundly important and relevant to us, almost exclusively. And it is the primary subject of thought, speech, and or expression, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
It's become the main theme, the main topic. Substance, content, the main aspect of our character. Also, education. We've been educated to think and believe that the material, that matter, is the only important thing. Let me ask you a question. Are vegetables matter?
Yeah.
Yes.
How is that going to equate to eternal life?
It's not.
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Real
it's
talk.
not important, but it's not
Right. Real
the
talk.
most important thing, family. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it's not relative from a physical standpoint, but only from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd be a fool to sit up here and say that not having a correct diet wouldn't help physically a little bit. But I want somebody to show me how that's going to equate to eternal life.
It already has been shown, so it can't be done.
I,
But you know, when you're locked in the simulated false matrix
yes,
of duality, you're gonna defend, you
that's
know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Of trying to sustain that material through a good diet.
that's right.
Yeah.
So matter here.
One thing we've done is we have forgotten the word transitional. That's the value of diet is you're transitioning and you're making less gross your body. You're taking in less gross food in your transition. I already mentioned our brother Elitam, who has been practicing breatharianism. We don't need as much.
Perfect, though, David. This is where this conversation is leading to, because as we go back to those primal beings and our primal expression, when we
Mm-hmm.
first emanated in, everything that you're saying is true, and we're going to have an understanding of where we must go back to. But I
Yeah.
guarantee you, it won't be as gradual as it was going up, as it was coming down and descending. I guarantee that. So they got matter, Nasi, as being the origin, the source. What? I thought the source was energetic. I thought the
But they
source
got it the other way around, huh?
and the mother. But that is what that is our thinking and perception, family, within the simulated human mind matrix.
Hmm.
Let's look at the word matrix, family. Look at here now, see. It means uterus, womb,
Yeah. Yeah.
source, origin. That's how
Right.
we came into the false simulated matrix. That's how everybody get here.
Yeah.
The place, this is very important, or medium where something is developed. Now,
Yep.
that word developed is not a good word.
No, it isn't.
It's not a good word. Just
No.
like the word adult is not a good word,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
because adult is moving you away from that childlike uh, clarity and purity and nakedness
Right. Mm-hmm.
of the id energy, which is our divinity. So when you're being developed, that means that you're in regression, that you're in devolution, that you are disintegrating relative to divinity. And it means that which embeds or encloses mass. So when in Genesis 6 and 4, it states, listen carefully, family. This is another level of understanding. When it states that the sons of God, listen, that's divinity, came into the daughters of men. Those are polar opposites, Nasi, gods and men.
Absolutely, Eitai.
So when it means came into, that's the word, the Hebrew word bo. That it was
Right.
called. So when you're calling someone into a room, you say what? Bo.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
So this esoterically means that divine beings gradually fell further into or incorporated or integrated themselves more fully, thoroughly, firmly, and permanently into mind first and then physical matter. That is the false, illusory, simulated matrix. We should
that's
be able
it.
to see this very clearly, family. Divine beings, the sons of God came into the daughters of men. They want to tell you that somebody was up in a spaceship, some aliens that was doing some work here was up in a spaceship and came in and had sex with human women. That's their secret doctrine. You know,
Right.
many of these individuals, we're not buying that. We understand that we were divinity and we fell further into, became more incorporated or integrated within the physical mind matrix. Continuing on, we're going to introduce a new term called the demiurge, and we talked about this before. But this is our ancestors giving us even more detail and an expanded understanding of how we got to where we are today. Now, see, that's all this is. We just have to have a perfect understanding of that and to begin to remember these things. And then we'll be able to perfect the way back. So we see in the graph spirit, mind, soul, body. All right? Spirit, mind, soul, body. Sometimes these things are, the soul and spirit are interchangeable. So you might
Mhm.
see it soul, mind, spirit, body, or spirit, mind, soul, body. That is the microcosmic as below. The macrocosmic as above is nous, logos, demiurge, universe. Nous, logos, demiurge, universe. Nous, corresponding to spirit or soul. Logos, and we know this, Nasi, because logos is all about logic,
Mhm.
rational thought, corresponding to mind. Reason, corresponding to the human mind. The demiurge, corresponding to soul, or in some cases, spirit, and the universe, the physical universe, corresponding to what? The physical body. The gross, as Do David said, the gross or dense aspects of this so called reality. This is an excellent article that I got just this morning from this place called montalk.net, from July 13th of 2010. And it reads like this: what the Greeks and Gnostics called the demiurge is a universal intelligence that fashions our world. So we know from what we just talked about that the demiurge can be equated with what? The ego and the superego. Those latter developing aspects of persona, what we refer to collectively as mind, what we can uh, refer to collectively as mind. And what I didn't make uh, clear about this metaphor of ego as mother, don't our mothers make us mind all the time? They're the ones that trying to get us to mind all the time.
Mhm. Mind your manners.
Your manners.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yep.
all of this is connected. All of this is connected. So a new term, let's not be thrown off by the term, is demiurge. And that is just another allegorical character that was added in to give us clarity. And the demiurge within the Gnostic allegory of the they call it creation, but it is the emanation process. That is what was created as a result of our flawed entry into the physical realms. All right? The demiurge was that intelligence, that flawed intelligence that was created as a result of our flawed emanation within the so called physical realms. It is said, listen, because we've gone over these things before in the study very recently, and I'll remind you of when we did it. It is said that the demiurge converts abstract metaphysical archetypes. These abstract metaphysical archetypes, family, are higher divine thoughts or ideas. Is everyone with me?
Mhm.
So the demiurge converts these higher thoughts, ideas, or translates them or interprets them into physically manifested forms. Are you all with me?
Okay.
That's what the mind does, and especially the programmed mind. Because early on, like I said, our mothers primarily, but our parents defined physical for us. Are
Mm-hmm.
you all with me?
Yes.
That's hard, that's soft, that's cold, that's hot, that's up, that's down, that's too high. No, that's too low. All of that. It is the demiurge converts abstract metaphysical archetypes, that is, our higher divine thoughts or ideas, into physically manifested forms, akin to your browser turning source code into a displayed web page. Just as a
Mm-hmm.
browser obediently displays what it is given, in other words, it mines you.
Mm-hmm.
It mines your commands outside of the computer. You ain't in there giving it command. You are outside of the computer world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just as a browser obediently displays what it's given, the demiurge projects shapes, that is, form and interpreted meaning, and perpetuates physicality in accordance with the archetypal thoughts fed into it by you, the creator. As a man thinketh,
Yes.
so is he. If you're thinking human thoughts, guess what? You're going to create a human reality and human experience exclusively. But if you connect with divinity and you bypass mind, you get rid of ego and superego, guess what? Everything that you create and bring into existence is going to be divine.
Yes.
The demiurge projects shapes, form, and interpreted meaning, and perpetuates physicality in accordance with the archetypal thoughts fed into it by you, the creator. Archetypes are the building blocks of meaning, the fundamental alphabet of existence, the abstract thoughts of the divine, of which all things are but particular expressions. We need to concentrate on this once you get the notes. Why is the concept of demiurge even necessary? Great question. Well, we know from the reality creation phenomenon, quote unquote, that our own minds can shape reality by directly altering the probability of events. Due to the dependence of reality on mind, it would seem that reality, quote unquote, is being projected by our minds. In other words, the false, simulated, physical matter matrix is being projected by the ego and the superego. And yet, reality, quote unquote, continues to exist even in our absence. Let's look at this, family. Even when we stop paying attention to something physical, it does not wink out of existence, does it?
Mm-mm.
Because you can say, well, where are you at now? Or where were you? And I say, at the bus stop. And then I'm not there. But you say, I'm at the bus stop. Where did you go? Right? It didn't wink out
Mm-hmm.
of existence based on the fact that I wasn't there experiencing at the moment, right? Listen, when we stop paying attention to something physical, it does not wink out of existence. obviously there must be something other than our own consciousness, our own singular consciousness family at work.
Mm-hmm.
Something that is always there, that functions as the default generator and perpetuator of physicality or materialism. Listen closely. This would be the demiurge, and I'm going to define what that is for you. That is the collective mind, or a cooperative consensus perception relative to what we all collectively have agreed to define as physical, material reality. Thus, can two walk together within the same physical matrix of reality except they be agreed? Are you all with me?
Okay.
We have all agreed to what the color red is. I have no idea of how you see it, but we have all agreed that what? Red exists. And when I stop thinking about it and paying attention to it, because you have agreed on the definition of red, you see it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what's necessary. Do y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is now we're talking about this collective or cooperative consensus of perception that we've all reached relative to what we define as physical, material, or reality. Does it make sense to you, family?
Okay.
Why not attribute this function to the infinite creator and dispense with the extra concept of demiurge? The answer is very, very, very wise on the part of our ancestors, and why they created this uh, allegorical character called the demiurge. Because, as you will see, the characteristics of the demiurge indicate more of a blind artificial intelligence than an infinite sentient being. That is our divinity.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, its function is uncharacteristic of the Creator and unique unto itself. And many of us, uh, when we talk about the creation, family, what do we talk about? The fish, the animals, the sky, the
Mm-hmm.
rocks,
Mm-hmm.
all physical and material things that are part of the false simulated matrix. But if we know the process of emanation, we know that we were more energetic when we first, and less physical when we first emanated in. And therefore, family, we did not relate to the earth as physical. We related to the earth in terms of energy.
That makes sense.
I mean, this is why, as we began to fall, we erected these monuments and we positioned ourselves in societies and civilizations according to the energetic grid lines or ley lines or dragon lines that course throughout this earth. We had a more energetic understanding and relationship with the earth, and one that was less physical. And guess what? We were uh, androgynous in our expression,
Mm-hmm.
and we did not eat, and we did
Mm-hmm.
not talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this demiurge represents the development of something that was unique and apart from our divinity, that would what? Govern us, rule over us, until we would do away with it.
Eitai.
Go right ahead, sir.
So when we was energetic, eating and talking is matter, movement,
That's correct.
and the opposite of that was that we didn't eat and we communicated telepathically.
That's correct.
Actually, that was rest.
That, say again.
That was rest.
That was rare. Are you're saying?
No, rest.
Rest.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Rest.
We were closer to the rest period at
Right.
that point,
Mm-hmm.
and we were falling into what? More and more activity, more and more
Yes.
movement, more and more
Mm-hmm.
expression of dualism.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Also, you said earlier, and I just want to stick a pin in it. I remember when you said that. I identified as remembering that. We got to learn to remember when we didn't talk, when we didn't eat, when we were closer to the rest.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is where we're going, David. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
When you said it, it sparked my memory. I remembered it. A flash of energy hit me so that I can say, yeah, I remember that.
Though when I began to conceptualize this, I had that spark of memory as well. And again, once we go into the next aspect of this relative to Lemuria Mu and what was transmitted as life there, I'm going to read this whole document and then I'm going to send it to everyone to read so that you can spark those memories. Because
Mm-hmm.
this, our ancestors described this in vivid detail. And when I saw it, I was right back there. And I said, I know
Mm-hmm.
this is my origin. Nobody had to teach it to me. Nobody
Right.
had to tell it to me. I remember experiencing these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our next step. But we want to nail these fundamentals down. These fundamentals down, so that we will be able to recognize those things once we began to read through the narrative. Ever since the Big Bang, that's where we started, family, and we're rounding to a close here. Ever since the Big Bang, all things have become dual and have been expanding outwards. Walk with me now. Ever since ever since the Big Bang, all things have become dual and have been expanding progressively outward, away from source, away from divinity. The ripple effects, the ripple effects. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Within that process, something called a mind was developed. And this mind locked us into the regressive, um, progressive expansion family outwards and away from source. That was the plan. Proverbs 23:7, for as a man thinketh with his dualistic mind, so is he. So is he.
Yes.
Conversely, as he thinketh with his holistic mind, guess what? Or his holistic mentality, guess what? So is he. And so is his experience, so is his environment, his inner environment, holistic. Consciousness or mind programming mentally shapes, governs, dictates, projects, etc. reality, the physical, material, so-called known universe. To project means to extend outward beyond something else. Projection is the presentation of an image on a surface, especially a movie screen. So remember, we went over this before. Again, we're just circling back and touching bases with this. This was the portion of our study where we went to the book Atomic Suicide, and it reads like this. This is the motion picture universe of simulation and illusion, produced by the ego, produced by the demiurge, which dramatizes the idea of reality by electrically projecting the thought imaged forms of mind idea upon the image screen of space, which we call nature. Which we call nature. We think that it is natural, and it is, but it is not organic. It is not original. Are you all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Continuing on as we close. What is ego? By Gary Van Warmerdam. Wow, Warmerdam. Sound like you cussing. February 26, 2013. The ego is an identity of our own construction, an identity which is false. And the one that constructs it or produces it, reality is just as false as the reality itself is just as false as the aspect or division of persona called the ego that produces it. It can only if it is false, and the false you, everything that it produces is false, family. The
Mm-hmm.
demiurge is the false intelligence, the false God, the one that we think is deity, that we've been programmed to believe is deity. If we take all the beliefs of what we are, beliefs about our personality, talents, and abilities, we have the structure of our ego. These talents, abilities, and aspects of our personality will be attributes of our skills. But the mental construct of our quote self, end quote, is artificial. We gotta realize this, family,
Yeah.
and we have to recognize it, and we have to, now see, bypass it, get rid of
Yeah.
it, kill it if necessary. The ego,
Yeah.
the ego is difficult to define, although I think we've done a good job in defining it, because the
Yes.
ego isn't one specific thing. This is why our ancestors, knowing this, family, that's why they have a multitude of ways of showing things. Because remember, these ripple effects, they just didn't go out one way, right?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They were what? Multi-directional. Multi-directional. They went out in all directions. As we showed here. The flow outward was an omnidirectional pulse wave. So we have to view this in a myriad of ways, not just one, because the ego isn't one specific thing. It is actually made up of many different beliefs that a person acquires over their life.
Mm, mm. Wow.
Those beliefs can be diverse and even contradictory. See, this is why you just got to kill it now. See, this is why our ancestors said ego death. Just kill it. You can't
Yeah,
Right.
have enough time
Yes.
to be dealing with all of these
yeah.
different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Real problematic. Yeah.
Right? It'd be real problematic. To further complicate it, each person's ego is different. If someone were to to clearly identify rather, and describe all the parts of their ego and what it drives them to do, you might not get a good description of what yours look like. The challenge of becoming aware of what your personal ego looks like. This is the case, this is the point, family. This is why we're spending so much time on this. What your personal ego looks like becomes more difficult because our culture, Nasi, doesn't reward us for directing our attention inward and
No.
Mm-hmm.
noticing such things. We project outward in the direction of what? The Big Bang.
Yeah.
But if we keep going outward with our what? Attention and our perception and thought, guess what? It's just carrying us, Nasi, outward what? In a never ending arc out. And we never return. So we
Mm.
Right.
have to reverse and invert the mental process inward first. This is what we've been talking about. And when we direct that attention and that intention inward, where intention and attention goes, energy flows. And we began, Nasi, as you talked about, activating that subconscious id
Yeah.
energy. We began
Yeah.
to connect with our divinity. And guess what? We began to remember. We
Yeah.
began to remember our divine origin. Other than that, Nasi, it will never happen. Never
Yeah.
happen. And you're doomed just to repeat these repeating cycles of moving outward
Mm-hmm.
ad infinitum. The ego develops in order to mediate between the unrealistic id and the external, so called external real world. It is the decision making component of personality if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
Ideally,
Yes.
ego works by reason. This is why in our little chart here, it is compared to the logos and the mind. All right, it is
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it is compared to the logos and the mind, whereas the chaotic id is totally unreasonable. That's what I want to connect with to get me out.
Yeah.
See, now those are symbolically, family, the rebellious angels, or
Right.
any sort of rebellion in the allegory of the scriptures.
Right.
Any sort, that was the problem. Now, see, all through the scriptures, that our forefathers were described as what? Rebellious, because
Rebellious.
especially when they knew and they remembered their id nature.
Mm-hmm.
They had some memory of that.
Oh, that's an excellent point, Eitai, because that verifies again who we are
That's
as a
correct.
people, and it connects us to, what I'm saying, our real identity or our real nature,
Right.
true nature, But again, by the inversion process,
Yes,
if you
sir.
rebel, you're going against the God of the simulated matrix, and if you do that, then you unruly, ungovernable, and all those terms, they kick
Right.
in.
Right.
Absolutely.
Wow.
What follows is an example of the ego, kava, mediating between the id, the serpent, and the so-called external real world in the allegorical Genesis narrative. Genesis
Yeah.
3. And the woman, ego, said unto the serpent, id, we may eat of the fruit of the gardens of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God, the superego, the moral superego, are y'all with me?
Mm-hmm.
Have said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. The
Yeah.
superego is the demiurge.
Yeah.
Is the demiurge in that aspect. Are y'all with me?
Can.
Mm.
The ego operates according to the reality principle, working out realistic ways of satisfying the id's demand. That's it interpreting, family, the higher thoughts, the divine thoughts of the id, and converting them to what? Match something physical or material. Often compromising or postponing satisfaction to avoid negative consequences of society or the negative consequences of the false simulated matrix. The ego considers social realities and norms, etiquette, and rules in deciding how to behave. Like the id, the ego seeks pleasure, that is, tension reduction, and avoids pain. But unlike the id, the ego is concerned with devising a realistic strategy to obtain pleasure. The ego has no concept of right or wrong. Where does the concept of right or wrong come from, family?
Mm-hmm.
Where does the concept, that's a question. Where does the concept of right or wrong come from relative to persona?
Dualism.
Huh?
The
Dualism.
ego.
No. Where does the concept of right or wrong or morality come from? If
The
not
super ego.
the super ego. Who said that?
Yeah.
He been studying. He been studying. We got to get this, family, because as we saw yesterday, this is what our ancestors gave us. It will walk an understanding of this, a clear conception of this, will walk us through this process. This is what they left us through Carl Jung. The ego has no concept of right or wrong. Something is good simply if it achieves its end of satisfaction without causing harm to itself or to the id. That is the only definition of good. Self-interest. Therefore, in the Genesis allegory, the serpent id had to convince Kava, the ego, that neither she nor it would be harmed, that is, die, as a result of eating the so called forbidden fruit. Does it make sense, family?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. This ain't gonna harm me or you. For God doth know, the superego that is in opposition to the id doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods. You will return back to source,
Mm-hmm.
return back to divinity, start that movement back, knowing good and evil, knowing how, Amaria, this dualistic matrix works, knowing how perfectly how this dualistic good and evil matrix works. So we're going to end right here. We've given you a lot to consider, a lot of material to study and conceptualize, family.
Yes, you have.
This is an expanded level now of understanding that's going to lead us, to a holistic perspective and holistic perception. And now see, therefore, holistic thought, holistic actions, holistic behaviors that's going to supercharge our ascension. So we're
Yeah.
going to stop right here. We've given you good portions on the plate. So take time, eat it, enjoy it, fully digest it, fully digest it. All right. So we're going to ask if there are any questions or comments at this point.